Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December 5th, 2025 City Council Special Meeting. Thank you for joining us in this virtual meeting format today. For meetings like this one, there is no opportunity for public comment, and those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meetings materials page of the City of Eugene website. Thank you again for joining us this morning, and good morning, City Council. I now call the December 5th, 2025 special meeting of the Eugene City Council to order, and I'll hand it off for our topic, which is a special meeting for the city manager in-person interview process. And I'll hand it over to our Central Services Executive Director.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen. And while I do that, I'll just remind everyone that we're here today to talk about the interview process for city manager that will take place the week of January 11th. And as you know, you've engaged quite a bit with the community to get to this point, and I will review that. Later today, you will interview candidates virtually and determine who will be moving to this portion of the interview process. So just to remind everyone of the engagement to date, prior to the job posting going out, you had requested that Bob Murray and Associates, who is the recruiter working on this, engage with the community to learn more about the skills, attributes, and experience that the community would like a city manager to have. And so they held stakeholder meetings with folks that all of you had suggested they meet with. There was a city council public listening session in which all of you attended. We held 2 drop-ins. One was for the public at large over Zoom, and we held a second drop-in specifically for boards, commissions, and neighborhoods over Zoom. And then we also conducted a staff survey. That survey was based on all of the public feedback, and then we asked staff to prioritize the feedback that was already provided by the community, and I shared that with you earlier this week. So I am going to share this as an overview and then go through some of these pieces in specifics, but this does plan on a 4-day process for all of you, and I'll highlight the components that you're engaged in. We are asking the candidates to arrive by Sunday, January 11th, so that they can participate in a meet and greet with all of you. That will not be in a public meeting. It'll actually be an opportunity for all of you to meet with them individually and in a more casual setting before the week and the formal process starts. On the morning of Monday, January 12th, they'll engage in a panel interview with the executive team. Those will be under an hour for each candidate and sort of the typical ranked interview. Next, they'll move to a community tour with city staff. This will give them an opportunity to learn more about special projects, upcoming initiatives, city facilities, and interact with a wide variety of staff throughout the organization. That afternoon, they'll have another ranked panel interview, and this is made up of community stakeholders. I'll visit that list in detail in a moment. And then just a note for all of you that that evening is the state of the city. On Tuesday morning, the candidates will join agency partners. I'll go over that list in detail here in a minute also. That is a ranked interview process and, typical around an hour interviews. Midday, they'll meet with all of you in a public session. So this is your opportunity for a more formal panel interview, and the public will be invited to watch that or be in the room in the council chambers. Each of those will be about an hour. That evening, we are proposing a panel interview with standing committees, and I'll go over this one in more detail here in a minute too. But that will be an opportunity for the largest portion of the community to contribute and provide feedback to you. And again, I'll go over that in detail in just a moment. That is the last event for the candidates. So on Wednesday, you have a regularly scheduled council work session at noon. And at 1:45, after you've had a 15-minute break or so after that work session, you'll have the opportunity to deliberate what you have seen over the course of the week. My intent is to send you all of the feedback and everything that we've heard from panels on Tuesday evening so that you have that to work with for the discussion on Wednesday. We're sketching out about 2 hours for that deliberation. In the event you're ready to make a decision or announce a finalist publicly, we would notice a public meeting so that you could do that. if other steps are needed, that's always an option too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these panels in more detail. And this is a list of the community stakeholders that we are proposing based on conversations we've had with all of you over the entire process. Bethany Cartledge from St. Vincent de Paul, Greg Irwin, Dana Fleming, Demond Hawkins, Graham Trainer with AFL-CIO, if you're not familiar, Brittany Quick-Warner, Guadalupe Quinn, and Katie Wilgus. I am suggesting that we not, for the most part, not allow for substitutions. And later, I'll go over how we might work with substitutions in the event somebody asks. But this is a fairly large group, so it does allow for folks to, if folks can't make it, we'll still have ample people to participate. These are the agency partners proposed. You'll notice they're all of our partner agencies across the region. So Jameson Otten, Stephanie Bolger, Frank Lawson, Miriam Mickelson, Steve Mokrahysky, Nancy Newton, Carl Scholes, and Craig Sproles. Give you just one more second to look at that. And then the last piece I'll go over in detail is the process we're proposing for standing committees. So this would take place in the council chamber, and a panel who would ask questions of each candidate and receive answers would be made up of the chair or vice chair from each of your 8 standing committees. In addition, we would invite all of the boards and commission members to the room to listen to the conversation. And we'd invite neighborhood association elected board representatives, probably the chair and vice chair, president, vice president, to be in the room as well so that they could hear the interview take place. And we'd provide them the form at the end so that they could provide you feedback. So the folks who are in the audience would not be interacting with candidates, only the 8 standing committee members would be, but they would have an opportunity to listen to the conversation and then provide you feedback. I'm going to go back to this slide for just a moment so that you can give it another look. I did email this to you as well. But this is, again, an overview of the 4 days. And so you'll note that this requires your engagement on Sunday evening. And then you have the State of the City on Monday, midday panel interviews with all of you. And then on Wednesday, it's most of the afternoon if we consider your work session, and then the time for deliberations. So today, I'm hoping to get your approval for this plan. The plan does assume 2 to 3 finalists. If you wanted to call for more, we would need to do some Tetris work. Not impossible, but that would need to happen. Bob Murray and Associates will be working with the candidates that week. So they will help them move from portion to portion of this process. And then staff will, of course, be working on most of the logistics for that week. And then my proposal is that if we do need any substitutions in the event that many folks can't attend one of those critical panels, then we'd work with council leadership to finalize options for other folks who could participate. And Mayor, I'll turn it back to you for questions and discussion. I'll leave this up for a minute.
Thank you so much, Mia. Very appreciated. I will now open the floor for council discussion. Councilors, let me see who we have in the queue here. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I'm looking at this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing that the only informal conversations, social hour, if you will, that I see is between council and the candidates on Sunday night. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
There isn't an opportunity for the general public or for any of our panels to be able to do that at all at any point. I'm right about that, right?
Right.
I just want to lodge the opinion that I believe there's value in that. I believe that soft skills are going to be some of the most important evaluation pieces for these folks. And I would like community members to be able to interact with them in a social setting as well. But that's my point of view, and I don't know that or not. So I needed to say it. Thank you very much.
Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mia, for the presentation. I think it's a well laid out process. I did have a question regarding the agency panel. I didn't see anyone from 4J on there. Was there a reason for that?
Miriam Mickelson was listed, and she is the new superintendent.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I had a different name in my head. I take that back. And as far as an informal setting, the issue Councillor Clark brought up, I don't think that's a bad idea, but I don't think that any additional people should be included in the informal session with council. It's hard enough to get in and talk to these people, and you can have one person that ties up a candidate for quite a while. So I'm very adamant about we need to keep our time to us and the candidates. Thank you.
Councillor Zelenka.
Yeah, I agree with what Randy just said. I also think that those kind of forums end up being very limited in that interactions with maybe 2 people, 3 people, and somebody could tie up someone for the whole time and really doesn't provide the value that I'm seeking. On the community panel, I was wondering if Dan Bryant was asked to be on that panel.
The list that these are the folks who I am proposing we ask. He can be added if you all desire that.
Yeah, I will make a motion to add Dan Bryant to that panel if he's available.
If everyone is generally in agreement, I don't know that we need a formal motion.
Okay, that's fine.
I expect to get other feedback to incorporate. Sure. Okay.
I appreciate the thought going into all this. I'm wondering about the time for council to review the panelist input. So the last panel's on the night before we meet, which will be Tuesday night. So how are you going to be able to assimilate all of that stuff, get it out to us, and then us be able to read it in a timely fashion for our meeting the next day at noon? And then all the other panels, how's that going to work? Are we going to get them as they get created so we can have time to look at it?
We can certainly do that. I did intend to send these either late Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. We can also go over all of it at the beginning of your deliberations, if that would be helpful. We could provide an overview at the beginning of that session.
Yeah, Wednesday morning wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
Tuesday night would, and I'd actually prefer if you get them created, just send them, and then the last one we'd get would be late Tuesday evening on that panel. That would be a big lift to look through that information, because I think those are valuable inputs to the council, and I don't want to short shrift them.
We can do that.
Thanks.
Councillor Kaczynski.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the work that you've put into this and the support that you're providing as we're going through this process. The overall setup and the list of panelists looks very good to me. I did have a question of where does reference checking and background checking fall into this process? Because I'm assuming we're not doing that before we have a final candidate, but then if we're announcing a decision before we've done background and reference checking, that feels a little strange.
So you might recall that BMA has done quite a bit of reference checking and some informal background work before they brought you candidates. So some of that has been done. There will be a more formal background that needs to occur, and that would happen after you've identified a finalist.
Okay. And would we get the information from the reference checks that they're doing at what point does that sort of come into this process?
I'll need to check with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Ye.
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, Mia, thank you so much for you and your staff. This is taking a lot of chaos and making it a lot simpler for us. I really appreciate it. I like the idea of having an overview at the beginning of the Wednesday meeting, just as a transparency kind of issue. I think, the community is really interested, as they should be, and just have, even if it's, you might send us something a little more detailed, but just being able to report back some general themes, I think would be appreciated by the community. I don't have a problem with adding Dan Bryant. I wouldn't want to bump someone else, though, because I think it is a good list that you provided. So if it was comfortable to add one more person, I would not be against that. But otherwise, I think this process looks great, and I really appreciate the time you spent on it.
Councillor Keating first, and then to Councillor Zelenka for a second round.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, great. I don't have any heartburn over adding Dan Bryant. I think it's that's a reasonable addition. So if we're just doing a head nod affirmation, good flag, Councillor Zelenka. And Mia, this list looks great. Ready to move forward. I'll leave that there. Good morning.
And Councillor Zelenka.
Yeah, Mia, could you go into a little bit more about what the formal background check would entail and what that means? And if, in particular, last time we talked, I asked about the checks with staff and community members in their communities. Not the ones that they provided; those always end up being glowing, obviously. So, how is that process going to work? And that should be an input into our final decision, not after.
Yes. Okay. I hear you. So that is something that BMA would actually do prior to identifying a finalist. And so I can speak to them about that.
A finalist or the 2 or 3?
If your interest is having them do a little more work about the 2 or 3, we can let them know that today or shortly after, and they can work on that between now and the January interviews. They've done some, and Valerie could share that information with you today if you're interested. They have done some of that. But if there's something more intentional you'd like them to do, they certainly can, and we can talk to them about that.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that all the finalists that come into the public interviews. By that time, their name will be public and people will understand that they're being coming to Eugene potentially. So the confidentiality part goes away. And so I definitely would like to see that information before we go into those final interviews. Those are way have be an important part of my decision making.
We can do that.
Thank you, councillors. Any more questions or feedback on this proposed process and the community stakeholders, agency partners, or committees, neighborhood groups, and at-large listening session? Okay, then with that, staff, I will say I'll offer also my thanks and appreciation for all of the work that has gone into this process and this incredibly important decision for our community. Very much appreciate all of that effort. Looking forward to a very busy start to 2026 and a really exciting week for our community. And with that, I will turn to the council president to put a motion forward. Councillor Evans, you're still muted.
Greg.
Yeah, I'm muted.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm not, I don't have a motion to put forward. I'm not seeing anything. I didn't get anything in the...
Council President, the motion that we need put forward is to move to approve the process for the in-person interviews as presented by staff.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, I will now take a vote for this motion. Please raise your hands or digitally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you all. And the motion passes with a vote of 8-0. Very appreciated, everyone. Thank you. This concludes our first agenda item. And unless there are any questions related to process and how we are continuing this morning, what we will do now is take a 15-minute break. So it's 8:53 right now. So we'll be back together just before 9:10, I guess. And counselors, if you would please return to this meeting room, this Zoom room. They will announce the general subject of the executive session and the rules before we move into that separate executive session link. So a little bit of that Zoom acrobatics that staff mentioned as we started this meeting, but thank you for those extra efforts in helping us to meet all of our requirements with the community and keep people informed.
Mayor, may I say something?
Absolutely. Please, Mia.
We are scheduled to go into executive session at 9:30. And so while we finished early, we need to take a full break until 9:30 and come back to this link to go into exec session.
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any objections? I would think not. So that's also simpler. We will
So we
see.
go into this one first and then go into executive.
Yes, we will come back to
9:30.
this meeting link at 9:30. We will announce executive session and then migrate in. But thank you, staff, for that clarification. And we will see everyone back here at 9:30.
Quick question.
Council. We are still in our December 5th, 2025 special meeting of the Eugene City Council, and now we will move into executive session. Our agenda item pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 192.6602A. The Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 192.3552 and ORS 192.6602A. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the meeting, and representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to record or report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions will be made and may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, this meeting of the Eugene City Council will conclude, and we will not return to open session. Councilors, if you would please now log out of the public meeting and log back in using the executive session Zoom invitation.